Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the 30th of January 2012, the podcast that's fallen and can't get up. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's blindside the news of the bogus. One of the things people keep saying we need government to do is the preservation and presentation of priceless artifacts. Because, of course, if it were left to private matters, they'd just get closed down, right? But as usual, we see government doing exactly what people are afraid the private sector will do. Case in point, a Japanese garden at UCLA that's been there since just after World War II. Now it's being closed down, dismantled, and sold. The garden has many centuries-old artifacts, including a 5-tiered stone pagoda and a statue of Buddha made of wood and gold leaf. The Garden Conservancy is decrying the dismantling of the site and is urging UCLA to preserve it, such as by putting the garden into private hands. UCLA had obtained it by donation from its private owners in 1965 on the condition that they would maintain it in perpetuity. So why are they getting rid of it? The answer is government zoning. The property is zoned residential, and this means that there are only 3 parking spaces allowed. As a result, the garden could not be open to the public and could operate only by appointment. As a result, it only had about 2,000 visitors a year, even though there's no admissions charge. It has been closed since last spring. Right now, their only hope is that some rich benefactor will purchase the garden and reopen it. But a longer-term hope is for more people to see the harm caused by government zoning, and any other time the government thinks it knows better than you how your own property should be managed. By now, you're all familiar with Solyndra, one of the alternative energy companies the Obama administration gave lots of your money to, with the promises that it would stimulate the economy, but instead, the company went bankrupt. What they're doing now is nothing short of insane. Despite the fact that the company is deep in debt, including $500 million owed to American taxpayers, they have been caught destroying millions of dollars worth of brand new parts. Listen to the report from a San Francisco CBS affiliate.
At Solyndra's sprawling complex in Fremont, workers in white jumpsuits unwrap brand new glass tubes used in solar panels. They are the latest, most cutting-edge solar technology, and they're being tossed into dumpsters. Forklifts bring one pallet after another piled high with the carefully packaged glass. Slowly but surely, it all ends up shattered. We're not talking a few loads. Hundreds of thousands of tubes on shrink-wrapped pallets will meet a similar demise. Solyndra paid at least $2 million for the specialized glass. We found this piece lying in the parking lot, and Solyndra still owes the German company that made these another $8 million. So why would a bankrupt company that owes a fortune to creditors, including U.S. taxpayers, be throwing away millions of dollars worth of assets?
There was actually a court decision that allowed them to do this. The court said that the brand new tubes, valued at millions of dollars and representing state-of-the-art improvements in solar materials, was of, quote, inconsequential value. They said that the cost of storing the tubes is greater than their value.
The company in charge of selling Solyndra's assets told us they conducted an exhaustive search for buyers, but no one wanted them. But how exhaustive was that search? The tubes were never included on the list of Solyndra assets put up for sale at 2 auctions last year. If they were, this man says he would have bought them.
We certainly would have bid on them, yeah.
David Lucky owns several large warehouses near Las Vegas. He buys and then resells manufacturing equipment and components all the time.
Our company has bought a lot of stuff over the years. Truckloads and warehouses full of inventory that other companies were ready to just, send to the dump and destroy because they don't want to take the time to find markets for it.
When Solyndra shut down last year, he bought hundreds of fully assembled solar panels at the auctions and is reselling them on eBay.
They're going for probably about 1/3 of the original price. They're a fantastic deal.
He says if given a chance, he would have snapped up the tubes too.
And listen to what solar scientist Greg Smistad had to say about the tubes.
As a scientist, I said, this has to be studied.
Smestad has consulted for the Department of Energy and lectures at Santa Clara University. He recently bought a Solyndra solar panel to study its technology, which is completely different from traditional panels.
They can accept both the direct sun and also track, but without motion because it's a cylinder. The technology is very, very promising.
He wrote a letter to the auctioneers asking if they could donate to Santa Clara University any of the leftover tubes after the Solyndra auctions are completed.
Let one student, like I was a student there, to use this as inspiration on their career, and then that will be worth something.
But the auctioneers wrote back saying they couldn't do that.
That really makes me sad. Those tubes represent intellectual investment. These could have had a better value, a value to do public good and to do science. And I think that they owed the U.S. taxpayer that.
This is the difference between a free market company and a company that's a government crony. A free market company would never have let valuable assets like these just be thrown away. They would have taken millions of dollars worth of technological and intellectual capital and either sold it to people who could broker it or donated to places that could use it. You know, because of their greedy, horrible thirst for profit. But a company on the government take doesn't worry about any of that. They have no problem with trashing new and promising technology as long as they can close their doors with whatever left they've bilked from the taxpayers in their own pockets. You know, because they're good and decent public companies who care about you.
We asked more than once for Solyndra, the auction company, and the bankruptcy trustee to talk to us on camera, but they all refused. We also called the German company that made the glass tubes to see if they wanted to have their tubes back. After all, they're still owed almost $8 million. A spokesman told us he had no idea they were being destroyed.
Unbelievable. Congratulations to CBS 5 in San Francisco for uncovering this. And to the rest of the news media, where the hell are you? Are you really that desperate to make government programs seem good that you just ignore every single time when they end up being an epic failure? I guess so. A court has ruled that people must allow the government to decrypt the contents of their hard drives, and that this does not violate the Fifth Amendment. This is for those of you who are still under the delusion that we can rely on judges to uphold our constitutional rights. Judge Robert Blackburn, an appointee of George W. Bush, ordered a woman in Peyton, Colorado to decrypt the contents of her hard drive so the government agents can go looking through it for whatever they might find. Quote, I find and conclude that the Fifth Amendment is not implicated by requiring production of the unencrypted contents of the Toshiba Satellite M305 laptop computer. As justification, he cited the All Writs Act, an act passed in, get this, 1789, when neither computers nor modern cryptography methods even existed. The act simply allows courts to, quote, issue all writs necessary or appropriate in aid of their respective jurisdictions and agreeable to the usages and principles of law. Of course, no act can contravene or overrule the Constitution. Blackburn also sided with the Department of Justice in asserting that your right to remain silent does not apply to refusing to give the government your encryption passphrase. The action was approved by Assistant Attorney General Lanny Brewer, who was appointed by President Obama. So we have a judge, a Bush appointee, and an Assistant Attorney General, an Obama appointee, both denying our basic Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. It's long past time to stop pretending that there's any real difference between Democrats and Republicans. The woman, Ramona Fricosu, is hoping to get a stay of the order while an appeal is filed. Best of luck to her. In this day where entire international websites are shut down just for competing with big media companies, it's more vital than ever that we protect our rights to privacy and the content of our own computers. If Fricosu isn't successful, if government agents can just take your computer and rummage through it looking for whatever they want, even if you've properly and legally encrypted the contents, then government can make criminals of us all. And on that day, we have no constitution left. Well, now that I've got you down, let me lift you back up again with a piece of good news from our courts. The Supreme Court has ruled, unanimously, how often does that happen, that police have to get a warrant in order to put GPS tracking devices on a suspect's car. In 2005, police officers secretly installed a GPS tracking device on a car used by a nightclub owner. They tracked him for a month and ended up convicting him on drug charges. But an appeals court threw out the conviction because electronic monitoring of the vehicle amounted to a search under the Fourth Amendment. Justice Scalia, writing for the majority opinion, said that the installation of the device was a form of trespass that counts as a search under the Fourth Amendment. The Obama administration, the administration of hope and change, claimed that this counts as a reasonable search under the Constitution. They couldn't get a single judge to agree. The 4 minority judges went even further and said that the length of time the suspect was monitored went way beyond the bounds of what is reasonable. Although the court didn't rule on that basis, it laid the groundwork for the courts narrowing the cases where such an intrusion is permitted. All the police have to do is get a warrant and follow the terms of that warrant in order to search or issue surveillance against a suspect. Why don't they do that? Why do they think it's some big unreasonable hurdle to be able to show probable cause that someone is actually committing a crime? Maybe because they themselves are worried that there isn't, and if they had to show it, then they'd be unable to exert the power over us that they are trying to grab for themselves to turn this country into a police state, which is something they must never, ever be allowed to do. And now it's time to slip something in the drink of this week's biggest Bogon emitter. There is a saying, to err is human, but to be really wrong requires religion. Okay, there isn't any such saying, but there probably should be. Case in point, Oklahoma State Senator Ralph Shortey, who is railing on about what he sees as not only a major health hazard, but one that constitutes murder as well, aborted human fetuses in food and drinks. He has introduced, quote, an act relating to food, prohibiting the manufacture or sale of food or products which use aborted human fetuses. Even though he admitted he never knew of any case where this has actually happened. Can anyone say, election year? The bill would make it unlawful to, quote, manufacture or knowingly sell food or any other product intended for human consumption which contains aborted human fetuses in the ingredients or which used aborted human fetuses in the research or development of any of the ingredients. It also said that the law shall take effect on November 1st, 2012, and election day is the 6th, less than a week later. Gee. Here's what's really going on. Proteins from a cell line called HEK293T are used every day in all kinds of research. That research includes flavor enhancement, but it also includes all sorts of things up to and including researching treatments for HIV-1 infection. In fact, pretty much any laboratory in the world that works with mammalian tissue is very likely to use 293 cells. What does this have to do with aborted babies? Well, the 293 line goes back to 1972, where it originates from the kidneys of a single aborted fetus. Now, all we know about this fetus is that it was healthy. We have no idea why it was aborted. Was it a natural miscarriage? Was the pregnancy ectopic? We don't know, but there's no reason to conclude or even assume that it was done solely for the purpose of birth control. And even if it did, that decision was in no way based on others using the fetus for research. Since then, the 293 line has enjoyed 40 years of success in biomedical research, including the development of new pharmaceuticals, gene therapy, antiretrovirals, and yes, even more mundane applications such as flavor enhancement for sodas and other food and drinks. What's important to understand is that none of these products, not the therapies, not the drugs, not the sodas, contain any aborted fetuses or even contain the HEK293 T cells themselves. There is absolutely none of that going on. But that doesn't deter Senator Shortey, who claimed, quote, the fact is that there is a potential that there are companies that are using aborted human babies in their research and development of basically enhancing flavor for artificial flavors. And if that is happening, because it is a possibility, and if it's happening, then I just don't think it should even be an option for a company. Gee, I sure am glad that Oklahoma has solved all of its problems with violent crime, drug addiction, spousal abuse, and even petty larceny, that their senators can now focus on passing laws against things that they're afraid people might do in the future. It must be quite the utopia there. Trying to defend this piece of bogus legislation, Shortey said, quote, you may think it's ethical to kill a child in the womb, but the question now before us is it ethical to then use that aborted child for research and development to enhance flavors in food? No, Shorty, that's not the question. The question is, should we throw out 40 years of biomedical advancement and all of the decades of research to come, resulting in treatments for all sorts of disease and the saving of countless lives, all because one baby was aborted 40 years ago in unknown circumstances? That is the question. And if your answer is anything other than the obvious one, then it is clear that you just have to be this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And now it's time to give a bad case of indigestion to this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. 4 officers in East Haven, Connecticut were arrested for everything from using excessive force to obstructing justice in their treatment of Latinos. Obviously, this is a very serious issue, warranting scrutiny not only in the behavior of individual police officers, but also a systematic review. Since this issue is of such great importance, one reporter decided to interview Mayor Joseph Maturo about the issue. Listen to the mayor's response.
What are you doing for the Latino community today?
I might have tacos when I go home. I'm not quite sure yet.
What? Hang on, let me see. I might have tacos. I might have tacos. I might have tacos! No, the delivery doesn't make any difference. It's just not funny. But if he's not joking, then what does he mean?
I have spent 2 years in Puerto Rico. I will probably do the same thing for the Latino community.
You realize that's not really the comment to say right now. You might have tacos tonight.
I might have spaghetti tonight. Being of Italian descent.
Tell me there's a punchline coming. That he's got something really witty and clever behind all of this that's just going to bring it all home?
I could go out and I've had ethnic food. And when you asked me what I was doing for Latinos tonight, I may go out and have a Latino dinner in the Latino community. There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't even know what to say. Does he think the Latino community refers to a physical place where he can actually go and hang out, instead of being a diverse and spread out group of people who happen to share a common ethnic background? Does he really think that, after years of suffering extreme and possibly systematic abuse by the police, that they actually care what he's going to eat?
I wasn't asking about what you're having for dinner, sir. I was asking, what are you doing for the community? And you responded immediately, I'm going to have tacos probably tonight.
I could, again, if I was going to go out and have tacos, I'd go to the Italian
that's not the point here, Mayor. Mayor, there's 10% of your community here that is Latino. There has been a segment of this community that's been impacted by the FBI arresting 4 officers over alleged discrimination. And you tell me today that your priority tonight is I might go have tacos.
Well, wait a minute. I didn't say it was a priority.
Well,
you asked me what
I asked you what are you doing for the Latino community.
Said maybe go out and have a Latino meal tonight, whether it be tacos or whether it be any other meal.
But don't you think that you should be doing something else right now to help squelch all this, what's going on?
We are. We are doing something. And I think I explained to the people who will be watching on your TV station that we are doing something.
But nothing for those impacted directly, which is the Latino community in this case, correct?
We are making sure that the Latino community that we have here is safe. We are making sure that the Latino community can move about town just like anyone else in our community.
You know, it's not like it was a difficult question. Come on, reporter guy, ask me.
What are you doing for the Latino community today?
My office is very concerned about what the Latino community here has undergone with this unfair and hideously unconstitutional treatment. Realizing that everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and these officers haven't had their day in court yet, nonetheless, I feel it is my duty as mayor to help all people of all ethnicities in this town by making sure their constitutional rights are protected. You have the right not to be harassed by police, not to be subjected to excessive force, and not to have your rights to due process violated. I will do everything in my power to make sure that the police are held to their oaths to uphold the constitutions of the United States and of our great state of Connecticut by working with the City Council to pass ordinances holding the police accountable for their actions against the citizens, including, but not limited to, suspending and even firing those who violate their constitutional oaths. See, was that so hard?
Because I don't think this is a systemic problem within our police department, nor within our community. We are an open community. No matter how you twist and turn it,
I'm not twisting or turning your words. You just told me that tonight, when I asked you what are you doing for the Latino community.
Here we go. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Make it sound whichever way reporters want it to sound.
Yeah, right, Mayor. Somehow it's his fault.
But you can twist it and turn it whichever way, or make it sound whichever way you want to the press.
I'll go with
that makes news.
I'll go with what you said originally, sir.
Which is all you need in order to see that only Joseph Maturo could be this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this Indigenous edition of the Bogosity podcast. Please visit the forums at Bogosity.tv, where you can read the show notes and participate in discussions about these subjects and anything else you'd like. And if you'd like to participate in the Bogosity podcast, you can send a question, statement, news article, or rant to podcast@Bogosity.tv. If you put it in an MP3 file, it just might get played in the podcast. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from Lord Acton. The most certain test by which we judge whether a country is really free is the amount of security enjoyed by minorities. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 Unported License.
Bogosity.